Chaney PhD FSA FRHistS is a British cultural historian. He is currently Professor of Fine and Decorative Arts at Southampton Solent University. He is an authority on the evolution of the Grand Tour, Anglo-Italian cultural relations, the history of collecting, Inigo Jones and the legacy of ancient Egypt. He also publishes on aspects of 20th-century British art. In 2003, he was made a Commendator of the Italian Republic. He is the biographer of Gerald Basil Edwards, author of the Book of Ebenezer Le Page, which he succeeded in publishing following the author's death in 1976. This has since been recognized as a 20th-century classic. Life education. He was educated at Leighton Park School, Reading, Ealing School of Art and subsequently gained a first-class degree in History of Art at Reading University. He completed an MPhil and PhD at the Warburg Institute, University of London. He also has a laurea from the University of Pisa. He married biographer Lisa Chaney in Paris, 1973, and has two daughters, Jessica Chaney, a former art director of Apollo magazine, and singer-songwriter Olivia Chaney. Marriage dissolved 2003. Work. From 1978 to 1985 he lived in Florence, where he was a ricercatore at the European University Institute, adjunct assistant professor at Georgetown University's Villa Les Balles, an associate of Harvard University's Villa Ittati, and taught at the University of Pisa. From 1985 to 1990 he was the Schaffery Research Fellow in Architectural History at Lincoln College, Oxford. He subsequently worked for English Heritage as historian to the London region and lectured in the history of art at Oxford Brookes University. In 1997 was appointed Professor Fine and Decorative Arts at the Southampton Institute, now Southampton Solent University, where he established the History of Collecting Research Centre. In 2014 he was appointed Visiting Professor of Art History at the New College of the Humanities, and January to March 2015 Fernand Braudel Senior Fellow at the European University Institute, Florence. He was co-founder and editor of Journal of Anglo-Italian Studies, and has served on the Executive Committee of the British-Italian Society, the International Association of Art Critics, and the Catholic Records Society. He currently serves on the editorial boards of the Journal of the Wyndham Lewis Studies, the British Art Journal, the Court Historian. In 2016 he was appointed Governor of University Hospital Southampton NHS Foundation Trust. Bibliography. Books: Oxford, China and Italy. Writings in honour of Sir Harold Acton. The Grand Tour and the Great Rebellion, Richard Lascelles, and The Voyage of Italy in the 17th Century. A Traveller's Companion to Florence, England and the Continental Renaissance. English Architecture, Public and Private. The Evolution of the Grand Tour, Anglo-Italian Cultural Relations Since the Renaissance. The Stuart Portrait, Status and Legacy. The Evolution of English Collecting, Receptions of Italian Art During the Tudor and Stuart Periods. Richard Urich, 1903–1992, a visionary artist. Introduction, updated bibliography and corrections to new edition of John Hale's England and the Italian Renaissance. Inigo Jones's Roman Sketchbook, 2 vols. William Rose, Tradition and an Individual Talent. The Jacobean Grand Tour, Early Stuart Travellers in Europe. Genius Friend, G.B. Edwards and the Book of Ebenezer Le Page. Digital publications: Edward Chaney, Academia. Edu Profile and Digital Publications. The Grand Tour. Consultant editors Jeremy Black, Edward Chaney and Rosemary Sweet. Adam Matthew Digital. 2009. Obelisk, A History. History Today 60:1. 1st of January 2010. Arbitratage, Warburgian Artist. EMAJ. Online Journal of Art. 30th of November 2013. Retrieved 1st of October 2015. GB. Edwards and the Book of Ebenezer LePage. Interview with Edward Chaney about Gerald Edwards, the Book of Ebenezer LePage, and his new biography. Genius Friend. Gil Alice Library Podcast. The Guernsey Gatto Pardo. The Island Review. The 18th of November 2015. Extracts from book reviews. For the Grand Tour and the Great Rebellion. For the early modern period, Edward Chaney's path-breaking The Grand Tour and the Great Rebellion on English Royalists underlines the dynamics of exile and the varied forms of interaction between exiles and the host societies. Philip Mansell and Amp. Torsten Riot. Monarchy and Exile. The Politics of Legitimacy from Merida Medicis to Wilhelm II. For the evolution of the Grand Tour. No one interested in the impact of Italy on English civilization from the Middle Ages onwards will read this remarkable book without finding out something he did not know and experiencing the thrill of a connection he has not seen. Professor Chaney's range is as wide and refreshing as his learning is exact. He uses his eyes and his judgment is never indecisive. Richard Ollard. This is a brilliant, original and refreshing account, teeming with new and fascinating material. Professor J. B. Trapp. Original and scholarly essays on a fascinating subject, the transformation of our art and life through a continuing stream of English travelers to Italy. Scholars, artists, architects, poets, collectors, ideological exiles are all here, first to trickle, soon to be thinned by religious differences, finally expanding into the flood of the institutionalized 18th century Grand Tour. 4 centuries of cultural transfusion, a wonderful subject and a remarkable book. Lord Dacre of Glanton. We tend to think of the Grand Tour as the province of Georgian lords and gentlemen living in a golden age of light hand, proportion and good taste. The reality began much earlier, lasted longer, and was neither so tidy nor so predictable. Professor Chaney's constant endeavor and success in expanding the boundaries and exploring the diversity of the concept stimulates us all to a new appreciation of the enormous indebtedness of our island culture to Renaissance Italy, and of the manifold ways in which the Transalpine lands remain our spiritual home. Carrie Downs. I fell for its irresistible enthusiasm. Chaney has a profound scholarly knowledge of the Anglo-Italian historical relationships, but he is also a writer full of surprise and discursive curiosity, a most beguiling delight. Jan Morris's Book of the Year. The Independent. Edward Chaney's fascinating book illuminates the magnetic attractions of Italy, a work of meticulous scholarship about the origins and evolution of the Grand Tour. John Mortimer. The Sunday Times. Verve and precision and tremendous authority. This book, richly illustrated and handsomely produced, will become an indispensable work for cultural historians, Italophiles and all latter-day Grand Tourists. Noel Malcolm. The Sunday Telegraph. This collection of 14 brilliant essays provides us with much new material and many new insights. David Watkin. Country Life. Chaney is a scholarly and learned writer, and he shed light on a wide range of topics. A wealth of humane learning characterizes this attractive volume. Sir Keith Thomas. Apollo, International Magazine of the Arts. This brand tub of Anglo-Italian delights sustained by seriousness and enthusiasm in equal measure. Jonathan Keats. Literary Review. To those who know, even in part, the sources in the continuing unraveling of the Grand Tour, this book is an indispensable, a quite golden addition. Professor Chaney holds us all in his debt in this collection of occasional essays touching on subjects and connection that, quite simply, have not occurred to others less erudite than himself. The style is of a plein-air ease such that one might be listening to a soliloquy in the gardens of Villa Lanti. Taken as a whole, it could not be bettered. Patrick Raintian's The Tablet for the Evolution of English Collecting will be indispensable to anyone with an interest in the development of the cultural history of England in the 17th century. That it is also stimulating, informative and very readable are the book's incidental merits. Thomas Thuy, The British Art Journal, v. 1, Spring-Summer 2004 for the Jacobean Grand Tour. This book's 107 black and white illustrations and photographs and 11 color plates are a tremendous boon. But the real skill on show here is Edward Chaney and Timothy Wilkes' recreation of the social and artistic milieu for this originary moment of one of the most important cultural practices to shape each young Englishman for more than 300 years. Claire Jowett, Times Higher Education Supplement, 20th March 2014. A timely, original and superbly illustrated demonstration of the European character of English culture. Philip Mansell, an excellent study of 17th-century travel by the leading specialists in the field. Jeremy Black, a lucid, entertaining and deeply learned account which brilliantly reconstructs the intellectual stimulus and daily realities of cultural travel in early 17th-century Europe. Gordon Higgett. This is a major contribution to British collecting studies, capturing that magical morning of the Jacobean Grand Tour when everything was new and exotic. James Staunton, enterprising, packed with suggestive detail, sumptuously and tellingly illustrated. Blair Warden, The Spectator. This fascinating study charts the diplomatic and cultural shifts that made travel to Europe both possible and appealing in the Jacobean age. Apollo magazine. Well-researched, lavishly illustrated, a dozen color plates and more than 100 black and white drawings and photographs make the reader feel they have been on a hand tour themselves. John Muir, Country Life for Genius Friend, G.B. Edwards and the Book of Ebenezer Lippage. This is a remarkable book which sets out to show us that the half-forgotten Gerald Edwards, author of a single magnum opus, should be acknowledged as one of the great novelists of the 20th century, writing with skill and conviction, calling on some impressive witnesses to give evidence. Chaney makes a powerful case that will surprise and impress readers today. Sir Michael Holroyd. No one is better fitted than Edward Chaney to write this book. It is a seminal study of a great but neglected writer, and it places G.B. Edwards in his proper historical, literary and philosophical context for the first time. Peter Goodall. B. Edwards was a cryptic and mystifying man, a writer with rare and sometimes perverse gifts, whose character mixed elements of the rascal and of the recluse, who yet produced one astounding classic, the Book of Ebenezer Lippage. In his last years he gave his trust and affection to Edward Chaney, whose matchless enthusiasm, perseverance and insight make him the best possible biographer of this puzzling misfit Guernseyman. Richard Davenport. Hines Media. Broadcast appearances on BBC Radio 4 programs, Start the Week, Woman's Hour, Science Now and In Our Time. He has acted as consultant for programs on the Grand Tour by Brian Sewell and Kevin MacLeod and Great British Art Collectors, Lady Helen Roslin, on BBC 4. He has contributed articles to Apollo, the Burlington Magazine, Country Life, the Daily Telegraph, the English Historical Review, History Today, the Independent Literary Review, the Milton Quarterly, Modern Painters, the Salisbury Review, the Spectator, Times Higher Education, the Times Literary Supplement, the Victorian. Awards. Leverhulme European Studentship, 1978-9. Huntington Library Research Fellowship, 1995. Mellon British School at Rome Award, 2006. Leverhulme Major Research Fellowship, 2010 to 2012. Polytheism and its Discontents, Cultural Memories of Egypt in England, British Council, Travel Expenses to International Travel and Illustration Conference, Bangalore, India, November 2014. Fernand Braudel Senior Research Fellowship, European University Institute, Florence, January to March 2015.